Welcome back to Relationshit. I am so excited about this episode. You literally have no idea because this episode is about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
All the good things and the bad things that baby.
And if you know the voice, then you know the woman, Shan Boodram.
Oh, drop a bomb on
Sexologist. Sex educator. Obviously, I have a million questions. Our listeners have a billion more questions. Everybody wants to talk about sex, but nobody talks about sex. Why is that?
Well, I think it's because everyone is, I think from an educator perspective, they're afraid of being the one who. Like, you know, when you're in grade school and the principal calls home and said, Susie said some inappropriate things in school today.
Yeah.
And like, what did they say? And then if it's something that you said, then you feel terrible because they repeated the thing that you initiated. But if they said something that you're like, where did they get that from? Then you don't have to have the burden of guilt.
Yeah.
So I think everybody is trying to pass off that burden of guilt. So they'd rather not be the one to introduce information. So if things don't go well, they aren't the ones to blame.
Right.
So it's unfortunate because the ramifications of that, you have a bunch of people who nobody tells them anything and they get a bunch of misinformation, but people I think are afraid of telling somebody. I think it's the burden of shame being passed on.
When we think about like what's the best sex you've ever had in your life, I always feel like it's not necessarily about like, if I'm speaking like heterosexually, it's as a woman, like it's not about like the biggest dick I've ever had or like the, you know, whatever. It really is about the connection for me, like the emotional connection that you have with someone. I think is so much more important than like the physicality of things. Mm-hmm. Do you agree?
I agree if you agree. I agree that whatever is important to you is what you should prioritize. And if you feel like, and a lot of people agree with that.
Yeah.
That should be a normal way of thinking about sex of, I'm a really big fan of sex needs two things to be great at the base. You know, me three, authentic. I'll add that to the list. As of today, it's my third thing.
Yes.
But consent, massively important. Intent, mutual intent. And then authenticity. But to me, mutual intent is like, why do you want to do this?
Yeah.
Do you want to do this because you want to get to a level of intimacy with me that you haven't achieved before or that you want to get back to? Do you want to do this because you just want to nut and go to sleep? Do you have a Charlie horse and having an orgasm helps you get rid of that? Like if you've got one idea of what you want and I have a different idea of what I want, we're not going to have the best sexual experience together. Because to me, good sex isn't just about the moment. It's 3 weeks after.
Right.
Do I look back on that and be like, reminisce and say that was a great time? Or do I get that feeling of guilt in my stomach of like, oh, why did I do that?
Yeah.
And if I have that, was it really great sex? So I think that intent part is really important. And for a lot of people, their intent for having sex is to share in a deep emotional bond and then to have that manifest in the physical.
Yeah.
And if that is your intent, finding somebody who's on the same wavelength is make or break for good sex.
That just hit me in the heart like a ton of bricks.
Oh,
That hit very deep in my gut.
Tell me more.
Just because like it really is what matters to you, and like that connection with someone, I think is kind of when you feel that connection with someone, it's because I could be wrong, and I'm trying to take more of like your vibe of like if you believe it to be true, I believe it to be true because your truth is valid because it's true. But like when you think about, you know, both parties or however many parties you got, feeling seen and feeling understood in the moment and like those your needs and wants being mutual versus, you know, when you have sex partners who it's like, I don't know what you're getting out of this, but it feels completely different for me. Like some people, it literally is just like an itch that you want to scratch, and other people it's like that I need like deep emotional connection. I feel like it's different for everyone, but I guess for me the definition of the best sex that I could ever have would be with my boyfriend currently, because we have such an emotional connection that I always feel like he's in tune with me and vice versa. What is the best sex to you?
My best sex definitely been with my husband, but I'm trying to think if that was a result of because we've gone through so many iterations of great sex, and because we got together and the goal was great sex, we had really good sex in the beginning when I didn't even like him. Not that I disliked him. I had no interest in getting to know him.
Right.
So I wouldn't even consider him a friends with benefits in the start because I didn't want to be his friend. I literally needed a physical release, and I was studying sexology at the time. So I was in school learning all this great stuff, and I didn't need someone to practice it on. So like, I just needed a body.
Yeah.
So I had great sex with him and I didn't even like him. But
Yeah.
now that we have a kid together and a life together and we have great sex too. So, I mean, I think authenticity, I think, is a thing for me. No matter what phase the relationship is in, if I feel like we're really bringing our truest self and we're responding in the moment, the sounds are unique, the way that you look at me is unique, the way that my body moves, your body moves. Like if you get to that place where really it's not performative at all and it's really vulnerable, like that's great sex to me.
Well, let's get into some people's truth, because the people have a lot to say. And I want to make sure that we get to, there's like a lot of overarching questions, but there's also some specific ones.
Do you do your own makeup?
Yeah.
It's so good.
Oh, girl, I don't have time for
Even your
to touch my
lashes
shit.
are
I don't do those.
seamlessly.
These are extensions.
Okay, it's phenomenal.
But you have, these are your lashes?
They are, yeah, because I can't be you.
Girl, bye. No, because you are what I pay to be.
No, that's not
That's-
true.
you
You're a
know
little
it
bit
is.
more. You know it.
Mm,
Okay,
no.
listen, we're flirting right now, everybody.
No.
Sorry, back to your questions.
I know, we're off track. Okay, somebody said, what do you do if your sex drive is drastically different from your partner?
This is the most popular question that I have seen in the past 2 years by far, since the pandemic began.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah. I've been affected.
I would say be honest about it, talk about it, really put it all out there on the table. Compromise doesn't always have to look like middle ground of people's desires. It can actually be two heads coming together and coming up with a solution that's greater than any one individual could have thought of. So maybe what your sex drives look like ideally to you as individuals is one thing, but when you bring all that together and you put it on the table as partners, you might be able to find out a configuration that you didn't even realize would be perfect for both of you. So I just think it's so common, and the reason why nobody has a fast answer for you is because there is no fast response, but the best thing you could possibly do is like lay it all out on the table, take stock of what the truths are, again, be more curious about what their answers are versus, you know, what you want them to say.
Yeah.
And then from there, make a really informed decision about what's healthiest for not just you as individuals, but as a couple.